students, and esteemed colleagues. Today I'd like to talk to you about crossing the chasm. Crossing the chasm is a phrase coined by Jeff Moore in his book by the same name in the early 90s. But what today's presentation is not, it is not a book report. Today's presentation, in fact, is about the ideas behind the book and the strategies that are discussed therein. And crossing the chasm as a phrase or as a strategy is a successful strategy for disruptive technology. It's a strategy to get it from the idea phase into and dominating the market. Crossing the chasm also refers to a recurring theme for innovators. Many early technology companies are unsuccessful because they cannot successfully cross the chasm. So in a nutshell, what we're talking about here today is how to get from inspiration to mass production, or, for our purposes, mass acceptance. So when we refer to the chasm, we refer to the gap that must be crossed. And that gap must be crossed so that your idea doesn't die on the vine, so to speak. So to understand the chasm, first we have to understand the technology adoption life cycle. So there's three overarching markets, but you can see on the bottom half, there are 5 distinct market segments. We have the innovators, the techies, who solve problems you didn't know you had. We have the early adopters, who are the visionaries and see the potential and are willing to take some risk. The early majority, who are the pragmatists. They value incremental change and can see the long value. Then we have the late majority, the conservatives, who are slow to change and willing to wait for a fully formed solution. And last, the laggards, the skeptics. They may never adopt it. In fact, they probably don't think they need it, and maybe they don't. So here you are, on the edge of the precipice. You have a great idea, you've built a small technology company, and you'd like to launch into the market space. So how do we do this successfully without falling victim to the same fate many other technology companies have? Well, we need to understand where this chasm actually exists. And you can see on the screen here that the chasm exists right between the early adopters and the early majority. In fact, the early majority is where you may make most of your money should you get across the chasm. So how do we do this, as we say, without falling victim to the same fate that so many other technology companies have? More specifically, how do we make sure that your company, doesn't end up falling into the chasm instead of successfully crossing it? Well, there are a few key ideas that you should become very familiar with. First and foremost, you have to identify your niche. We call this establishing a beachhead. And to do so, you need to know what do you have that no one else has, or why they should buy into your idea. And if you can't say it in 2 sentences, you should do some more research. Next, we have target acquisition. We need to identify our market, our early adopters. An example would be males aged 24 to 30. And we do this because we want to aim small and miss small. Next, we want to assemble our invasion force. We're going to make a strong market claim, but we're going to stick to our niche, we're going to generate enthusiasm, and we're going to create the buzz. After that, we're going to launch our invasion. To successfully cross the chasm, we need to dominate a small, specific market. We don't need to conquer the world. We need to just conquer this market segment. Small wins and early wins. We're going to use this momentum to launch over the chasm and into the next market segment. But once there, our work is really not over. In fact, it's probably just beginning. because once we're over the chasm, we have to identify our new market. We need to be ready to adjust our tactics, but we want to use the same strategy. We want to establish a beachhead. We want to pick a target. We want to assemble